Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a director and cinematographer in Perth.
And I'm Elle, I'm a producer from Perth, and we're chatting to you today about our new feature film that we're trying to raise money for, Good for Nothing Blues.
One part Big Lebowski, one part Trainspotting, and one part Two Hands. Good for Nothing Blues is the story of what happens when a bunch of uneducated, unemployed, down on their luck people get a hold of a whole bunch of money very quickly and have no idea what to do with it. And soon enough they find themselves caught up in a mess of gangsters, cops, drugs, and debts. So that was a couple of clips from the Kickstarter for my second feature film. And I'm going to tell you a whole lot more about it in 2 minutes, but first here's the concept trailer that we shot.
Well, I never did too well in high school. Dad said never amount to anything.
Well, I guess you proved him wrong then.
Huh?
Calvin Jones, 22 and unemployed, lives with his best friend, Gary.
Do you want a joint, Cal? Some idiot just dumped this in the grass.
Lucky Steve, who despite their superstitions does not have good luck.
27.
And Hank, his cousin, who, as he would put it, is a connoisseur of unauthorized pharmaceuticals.
Your only reference is a high school English teacher?
Yeah, you always said my English was like hell good and shit.
Calvin's life seemed to have settled into a predictable pattern. He was certain each week would be the same as the last.
That Centrelink?
Yeah.
Been on hold long?
Oh, no, only about 2.5 hours.
The last three balls
But this
tonight
week,
are number 4, number 27 and number 7.
he was
Well,
wrong.
good luck to you all, and hopefully one of you, your life has just been changed.
You're the guy who won all that money, right? It was you were like really cute.
Really? You always call me dead-ass guy.
Yeah, that's because they're dead. Piercing right to your soul.
Calvin! Forget about that gold digger, mate. You're rich now, you can have any girl you want.
Avani.
The hotel chain?
No, this girl I've always wanted to ask out. She's an artist. I was just wondering if you want to get dinner sometime with me.
Yeah, I would.
Wealth seemed to open up a world of possibilities.
Look, Hank, I really appreciate you taking me on, but what if this guy doesn't cooperate?
You just show him the nut.
What if he's a bigger knife?
I don't know, throw some sand in his face, show some initiative.
Or so he thought.
Calvin, drugs?
I never meant to get messed up in this.
$50,000? Jesus!
This is more important than friends, Calvin. This is about money.
I just want to feel like maybe I can do something good with my life for once.
Now, to put a long story short, the Kickstarter failed. However, that was not the end for Good for Nothing Blues. And so today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the pre-production for my second feature film. To be clear, it's still being worked on. We're still going ahead with it, and it definitely will be completed, even if it's the last film I ever make. So, let's get into it. Now, the script for Good for Nothing Blues has been in the works for a long, long time. Back in 2016, I was working on my first feature film, Subject 36, and I'd already started the script for Good for Nothing Blues about a year earlier than that. So it was a very slow process. It spent a lot of time on the back burner when I was working on other things and when I got stuck on it. The concept for the film started with a few simple things. I think emotionally, the basic core element that inspired me for the film was when I was on welfare, and it's sort of this deep sense of like humiliation, uselessness, worthlessness, and just desperation and hopelessness that you feel. And I wanted to tell a story that sort of captured that and explored the ideas around it. And another thing was a musical influence, which was Bob Dylan's Basement Tapes, which I'd started listening to around that time, and had really given me a lot of inspiration in terms of the tone that I wanted to go for. Oh, and another thing would be The Big Lebowski, which was my current movie obsession at that time. The way I develop stories, which maybe isn't the best way, but it's how it works for me, is I don't usually write anything about them for quite a long time. When I get an idea in my head, I end up going for a lot of long walks and thinking about them like all the time constantly until something forms in my head, becomes a bit more solid. I spend a lot of time thinking about it and then get to writing it. And that happened quite a few times throughout the process, repeating that cycle. And I'd got stuck on it more than any other project I'd worked on in the past, more than any other script. There were times when it had been like 6 months since I'd actually written anything, and I was just getting on with life, doing other things. But eventually it all came together. As the story developed, the comedic elements became stronger and the characters became better defined. They became like more and more distant from the inspiration. And I had some really fun and awesome plot ideas, which just made things really funny. But what it also did is it made it pretty complicated. And towards the end, I was getting into a bit of a knot that I really needed to try and untangle. So that's when I finally had to start actually putting in like written structure and doing a structural overview of the rest of the plot, and then turning that into a script. I finished the first draft in mid-2018, and since then it's mainly been minor revisions. Honestly, I'm really happy with how it's turned out, and I think it's the best script that I've ever written. I think it's got a lot of humor. The characters are really well defined and interesting. Got quite a bit of pathos as well, and just some really exciting and fun plot twists and turns. But I knew to make it the way I'd hoped that I need to find a great cast and crew, so that was the second step. In April 2018, I shot the largest scale short film production that I've done so far, and that was Paranoia. We had about 10 crew on that production, and it was the first time that I'd worked with a producer, because previously to that, I pretty much always produced my own projects, and that producer was Elle. I had asked around on local Facebook filmmaking groups, and Elle responded, and that was it. She was amazing on Paranoia. You know, she was very professional, very organized. She was on board with the creative direction I wanted to go, and we got on really well. So when it came to Good for Nothing Blues, she was my first choice, and she was more than happy to come along for the project and help me with the Kickstarter as well. Casting was the first step that we wanted to do, so I booked some audition times in a place called the Blue Room Theatre in Perth. I used a site called Star Now, which is really great for creating auditions and call-outs. They've got one in Australia and I think in the UK as well. And one of the big things that I wanted everyone to be able to be paid in this film. Everyone who's acting in this film is going to be paid. And so we put that on the call-outs, made sure we were very upfront about it. It wasn't going to be a lot, but it was going to be something. And on top of that, we put some contracts up to organize a deferred payment scheme so that it was understood that if the film started making money, the actors would end up getting paid more and more as the film earned more money until they had achieved like full standard professional rates. Now these days I know many more actors than I used to, but I still think it's worth it to audition to find the perfect person for the role. Sometimes people can really surprise you. There are people who I've cast before who have never even been in a film before, yet they were better than many of the actors who applied who had been in many. They were just better suited to the part. Now the first 2 out of the 3 days of auditions we did, I was getting kind of worried because I really hadn't found much that I was looking for. But fortunately on the third day, my expectations were just exceeded immensely. And I found so many great actors on that day, and almost everyone, I think, was cast from the third day. The way that I like to do auditions is that I send out 2 or 3 scenes for the actors to do, which I know is probably more than average, but I really like to see a range of their abilities. So I send out the 2 to 3 scenes, and I give them like the basic character, but I don't tell them too much about the specific emotion of the scene, and I just get them to give me their interpretation. And then after they've given me their interpretation, I might ask them to change it up a bit, try a different emotion, try a different goal, something like that, and then see their ability to take direction, because I think that's just as important as their ability to play it a certain way, is their ability to transform when you ask them to do something different. Because some actors, you tell them to do something completely opposite end of the spectrum to their performance, but what they'll give you is almost exactly the same. There are some actors who excel at one emotion, but are completely incapable of portraying another. Fortunately, that was not the case with the actors that we found, who are all fantastic, and I'm really happy to have them on board for the project. The actors that we ended up getting were Cody Brown, Liz Joseph, Jackson Jarvis, Blake Del Popolo, and Bryce Miles Fenwick. That's for our main roles. And in addition to that, for some of the slightly smaller roles, we also got Carlos Sivalingham, Madeline Lombardi, Dave Axel, and Jimmy Kilday. So yeah, you probably don't know who any of those are because they're all local Perth actors, but they're all really good, and they're going to make this fantastic. When budgeting for this film, me and my producer El Cahill took some estimations at what we thought would be the minimum sort of crew size that we'd want, the approximate number of days that we'd be expected to be shooting, and that sort of thing, and we made up a budget that was our minimum budget that we'd be able to make the film on, and we got something around $15,000, that's Australian dollars. And so our next step was trying to raise funds for that. And part of the reason that I cast first was so that I could make a concept trailer, and that was something we wanted to use for the Kickstarter and for attempting to find investors and stuff like that as well. For better or for worse, I didn't want to push the actors too much and ask too much of them right out of the gate, so what we ended up doing was being a bit rushed in producing the concept trailer. We shot it in 2 days, 6 hours a day approximately, over a ton of different locations, and it was the first time that any of the cast had really met before, so we were a bit rushed and the trailer didn't live up quite to the standard that I'm expecting to do for the full film. But, you know, I think it gives a good rough idea of the story, and on top of that I think it helped me get a handle of some of the feeling that I wanted to evoke in some of the scenes. After we shot the trailer, me and Elle did that talky introduction video that you saw at the beginning of this video, and we came up with some nice ideas for rewards and set up the Kickstarter. We were looking for about $20,000, which is the $15,000 we needed, plus the $5,000 that are basically Kickstarter costs and that sort of thing, and the cost of the rewards, of course. And the other reason why casting was the first thing we did is so that we could have a stronger network in terms of people who were interested in the film, people who had a stake in it, but through someone that they knew, which we thought would help with the campaign somewhat. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I'm not the most naturally charismatic person. I sort of play this up even a bit for the camera, and I still seem really monotone and flat. That's just how I am. But I tried to generate enthusiasm, even tried to get a bit of media coverage, which we did. I got a few things on it. One was a local community radio station, and the other was a local community TV station. But the audiences for those are never really very big. And unfortunately, I didn't get anything more than that. And it was not enough in the end to get us to a successful campaign. We ended up getting about $4,500 in pledges, which was quite something, you know. It's not insignificant, but it was fairly far short of the goal that we were trying to achieve, and I'd set it so that if we didn't reach the goal, the pledges wouldn't go through. But what I did after that is I reached out to a lot of the people who had given the pledges, and I said, you know, if you want to still go through with a similar pledge, but like outside of the Kickstarter sort of system, then we can do that sort of more informally. And a lot of them said yes. Of course, that wouldn't be enough on its own, but I was not ready to give up. And we had another year now that we'd postponed the film a year so that we could work on getting investment and other sorts of funding for the project. And so that's what I'm going to talk about next time. I'm going to talk about how we raise more money for the project and catch up on basically all the pre-production that's been going on in the past year up until this point. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really appreciate the interest in this project and my filmmaking journey, and I'm really excited with how the channel's growing. I'd love to continue to share this stuff with you and make this sort of a regular series. As I get deeper into production, I want to share things like behind the scenes footage, little clips of the film as it gets made, because it's going to be shot early next year. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy experiencing my filmmaking journey with me. See you around.